There are two theories within humanism. The first theory, which we saw in a previous video, was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the second theory is Carl Rogers' person centered theory. And the big concept within person centered theory is the concept of self, or self concept. So, what is self concept? Well, self concept is basically what you see when you look in the mirror. It's the ways we use to describe ourselves. So, when you look in the mirror, you can see maybe an innovator, you can see an author, you can see maybe uh, a good looking person. So, all these things make up our self concept. And Carl Rogers said that our self concept consisted of three components. The first is our self image, so how we view ourselves. And the next thing is our self esteem. And it's important to note here that self esteem is not the same thing as self efficacy. So, self esteem is our self worth, and self efficacy is how capable we think we are. So, for example, someone who is a perfectionist, they might think they're very capable of doing something, but they might have a very low value placed upon themselves. So, in this case, they would have a high self efficacy, but a low self esteem. And the final component is our ideal self. So, this is what we hope to be in the future, what we're striving for. Now, Carl Rogers said that our self concept is very subjective and it doesn't always align with reality. And in fact, it almost never aligns with reality. But what's important is the degree in which our self concept overlaps or does not overlap with reality. So, for example, let's say that you think you are a very bright person, and reality says that you actually are a very bright person. Carl Rogers said that this person had a congruent personality. Now, on the other hand, let's say you think you are a very bright person, but reality says you're actually not that bright. So Carl Rogers said that this person had an incongruent personality. Now, why is this important? Well, an incongruent personality meant that the individual was self actualizing and they had developed a exceptionally healthy personality. Self actualizing. And a self actualizing person, when they were faced with these situations where their self concept did not align with reality, they took rational techniques. So they could either accept reality or they could change themselves to be more like their ideal self. And an incongruent person experienced a lot of anxiety in life. Now, they experienced this anxiety because their self concept was not in line with what reality says it was. So that led to this anxiety. And when they were faced with these situations, they took irrational techniques, meaning they would deny the situation or withdraw or avoid the situation. Or they could just reinterpret the event that happened or reinterpret the outcome. Carl Rogers believed that what led to either a congruent or an incongruent personality occurred in childhood development. So, in childhood, you could have either received unconditional love by your parents, or you could have received conditional love by your parents. Unconditional love is where your parents separated your behavior from affection that you received. So if you acted out or misbehaved, your parents still tried to correct and fix your behavior, but at the same time, they still let you know that they loved you no matter what. And this led to someone becoming congruent. On the other hand, if your parents only gave you love if you met their expectations, you grew up living life trying to meet those expectations so you could receive that love. And this led to you carrying this burden throughout life. And instead of focusing on yourself, you focused on meeting the expectations of others. And that led to an incongruent personality. A lot of theories have focused on childhood development of the self. And one kind of big theory is self categorization theory. And what self categorization theory said was that our self concept was made from our self identity and our social identity. So, our self identity, that's the I. That's what you use to describe yourself and only yourself. And our social identity is the we. It's the identity we share with the group that we're belonging to which is categorized by the we. So, for example, let's say that you said I like sports. Well, you're saying that your identity and your identity alone like sports. But if you said we as a class like sports, you're saying that you plus the rest of your class all like sports. So you're saying you are taking the identity of the class. You and the rest of your class share an identity. And then you could say we as a school like sports. So then it would be you plus the rest of your class plus the rest of the school. And we could keep going until we said we as a human race like sports. But the main point here is that there are infinite levels of we, right? We could say we as in the 8th grade or we in the 12th grade like sports. But each each level of we includes all the preceding levels before it.